welcome to Volleyball in Perspective. I'm Rich Teddemer along with Hall of Famer Ron Lang. How does that sound, Hall of Famer?
It's been a nice couple of days. I'm really tickled with the class I'm in with. I mean, it's a group of guys and gals that have really accomplished a lot in their careers. And it seems like all of us have one thing in common, and that's that volleyball was a job, or we treated it like a job, and put lots of extra hours in more than everybody else that were our contemporaries at the time.
I think it's interesting, you played in the 50s and 60s, and yet you didn't get paid to play volleyball. You did it for the love of the game, and you played for a long time for the love of the game. It wasn't like it was your vocation, it was your passion.
Actually, it was my job, and my vocation supported my job, which was I was a stockbroker. But the volleyball was the job, and I believe, and I said to you a minute or so ago, that Ronnie and I, when we probably played more time on the court than the guys that are getting paid for it today. I mean, we played 6, 7 days a week, 3, 4, 5 hours a day, just because it was fun.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about your start. You grew up in California. How did you get started playing volleyball? What was the drive?
When I was going from junior high school to high school, my mom would take a buddy of mine and I to the beach a lot. And this one particular summer, there were so many jellyfish in the water we couldn't go surfing. So we happened to be sitting on the beach doing nothing. There was a couple guys over there bouncing the ball around, and we thought that looked like it might be fun to try. So we tried it, and from there I met a couple other guys from Hollywood YMCA who were playing on their second team, Dick Cooper and Harry Cohen, and I got to play with them quite a bit, and they were not very much fun to play with because they kept driving me, you know, move, do this, do that. They pushed me all the time, but in so doing I learned how to play the game the right way and get in position to do things the right way. And so the fact that I didn't like playing with them was really a benefit to me because they gave me a good foundation.
You started on the beach, it sounds like. Did you prefer the beach over indoor?
No, actually they're two different games. They almost don't even have the same rules when I played. It's just, you need a different set of skills to play inside. And there were some really good indoor players, like Bill Olson from Hollywood Y, who was he was a great spiker. But you put him on the sand and he wasn't agile enough to pass and set the ball. But you put him on the sixth court, they could put him in spots where he wasn't a target. And so it takes two separate sets of skills. In my time, there were only maybe 5, 6 guys in the years that I played that could do both and do both well.
Is it hard to make that transition? I mean, there's so much court to cover when you're playing at the beach as opposed to the indoor game. Is it hard to make that transition, or is it easy to?
Well, it must be hard because there weren't a lot of guys that could do both. I mean, Selznick could do both. And I could do both, and Von Hagen could not do both, and O'Hara could do both, and Mike Bright could do both. But Rolf Engen, who was a great setter for Hollywood, he couldn't do both. He could pass and set, but he wouldn't be able to put the ball away. So it's just different sets of skills. And you could have 1 or 2 great skills and be a great indoor player, and if you can't hit the ball, you're dead on the beach. Or if you can't pass the ball, you're dead. Because if you're a target, you'll be a target for lack of one skill on the beach because you don't have any place to hide.
Now, did you play in high school and then in college? You played at USC?
No, they didn't have team then.
They didn't have the team then?
Wow. Basically, when I went to SC, I was playing, after classes, I'd play 3 or 4 days a week on the beach, and then I'd go up to Hollywood Y and play short court doubles. And then there were a couple other gyms I'd play doubles indoors. So most of my initial play was only 2-man. But after the first year on the beach, Selznick put together a ragtag group of guys, Manny Sides, who was 43, and Bernie, who was 35, and we went back to the Nationals and ended up getting 3rd. So.
You keep mentioning Jean Selznick and Ron Von Hagen, your great partnerships on the beach. Let's talk about Selznick first off, because you started with him. What kind of player was he?
He was a great player. Later on, he cared more about the inside game than he did about playing on the beach. The one thing about Gene, I mean, he and I were really we were tough defensively. It was fun for me to play with him. The problem with Jean, as I've always said, is that when Jean walked on the court, he thought he should win because it was Jean Selznick. And a lot of times he didn't put forth as much of an effort because he just didn't care. He tried to win anyhow. And that happened, you know, after a couple, 3 years of playing with him, he started doing that. And with the other thing with Ronnie, if we were playing against two girls, Ronnie would play just as hard against two girls, or the 64th seed, or the first match Saturday, or the finals on Sunday. He would not give you an inch. So, as I said, Ronnie and I played for a year and a half without losing a game to anybody.
That's amazing.
And we played every day, and we're playing minimum 3-4 hours a day.
And so you're playing all these games. It's not like you're getting paid for it. It's not like it is today where there's scholarships involved or there's a cash prize at the end. You're playing for the love of the game, and you're playing every day more than you said than the guys would be playing now.
Yeah. Well, I said it was a job.
Yeah.
And I supported the job by being a stockbroker. And it gave me the free time to get out there and do what I really wanted to do. So I probably couldn't have played any. The only thing I probably could have done more of if I was getting paid is I might have lifted a little weights to strengthen up my legs a little more. But I could play 4 or 5 hours anyhow, so.
It's amazing then, so you didn't have a high school team, didn't have the college team, and yet here you are, and you're invited to all these international matches representing the United States. But at that time, you had to pay your own way.
Right.
And it was difficult for you to make that, to make that
I
commitment.
didn't go on any. I was picked from 1957 until 65. I was picked to go on all the international trips. 1964 until 1964. To go on all the international trips, and the only trip I went on was the Olympics, because you needed to take 2 or 3 weeks off, and you needed to pay your own way, and it didn't seem like that was worth the sacrifice.
Now, talk about that Olympic team in '64. It's the first American team to go to the Olympics. Talk about what it was like to be a part of that.
Well, if you want to pick an athletic experience, that would probably be the top of the heap. I mean, you know, the Olympic creed is not to win or lose, but to participate. And it was unfortunate for us that we were 12 guys from, mostly 9 of us were from 2 different teams, and we've been competing against each other for years and knocking heads against other for years, and we weren't really a team. We were 12 guys thrown together, and basically I don't think the guys liked one another that much. And we didn't have enough time to get together and learn how to play together. And then the other thing was that we get over there and we've been playing USVBA rules, and we get over there and now all of a sudden we're playing international rules, and that hurt us a bit. But it's something that it's irreplaceable.
Right. How was it? What was the difference in the rules that were there?
Well, we were passing overhand. We were passing overhand a lot in the States, and over there you had to block. You had to pass. No passing with your hands. You had to bump the ball. And that when you get in circumstances where the ball's coming at you at your chest, and your natural inclination, because you've been doing it for years, to step in and pass the ball overhand.
Right.
The minute you do that,
wow.
Point. So.
Did you know that going in, or is that something that you realized when you got there?
Yeah, I think we probably knew it going in, but you know, we didn't think about it. I think we were only thing we were interested in was getting over there and being part of it.
Right. Was that your first trip overseas to Tokyo?
Yes.
It was. So what was that experience like?
The Japanese really treated us like kings. I mean, if you walked into any particular bar or restaurant, they were all over you, buy you for your drinks, come up and talk to you. They were very, very nice. And of course, the Olympic setting, I mean, the coaches finally came down and said, hey, watch what you're eating, because there was just gobs of food. I mean, it was amazing how much food, and each individual country had their own food. And so I can't express enough or well enough what an experience it was.
When you went there, and it sounds like it was your team was just a team that was put together just to represent the United States. When you went there and competed against these other teams and saw the other countries, what impressed you, and who was the power at the time?
Well, I think the Russians won. I think the Japs were second. I don't remember who was third. I talked to the Hungarian team captain for a couple, 3 hours through an interpreter, and he was astounded that the Americans didn't have the money to send teams to the international tournaments. And I told him we'd been together 6 weeks, they've been together 5 years.
Yeah.
So right then and there, you're at a disadvantage.
Did you learn something? What did you learn from watching them play? And
I learned I wasn't as good a shape as I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
We played a practice match against the Czechs, and I thought I was in pretty good shape. We went 3 or 4 rotations without scoring a point. We didn't score, they didn't score. And I think that was the biggest thing I found out, that as good a shape as I thought I was in,
Mm-hmm.
I probably wasn't as good a shape as I should have been.
Who was there that you saw that you said, this guy can play?
Everybody.
Really? No kidding.
Yeah, I mean, they all could play.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there were 2 teams. We beat the first 2 teams we played, and I don't remember who they were, but we won our first 2 matches, and then we lost the next 7.
Mm-hmm.
But they all could play, you know.
Did you see that there was a difference in the way volleyball was treated in the United States compared to?
Well, actually, in
Hungary
the
or Japan?
Iron Curtain countries, they were all being supported,
Mm-hmm.
and we weren't. You know, I mean, today, I'm pretty sure, because I think in '68 they started housing the guys and taking them to training camps and doing stuff like that, and there was nothing like that at all in volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
And now, the national team is together, period.
Right.
You know, they travel together to play a lot of international tournaments, and it's a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a big advantage. You know, I mean, the game happens so quickly that if you don't instinctively know what the guy next to you is going to do, you're at a big disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. Do you get a thrill when you watch the team now and it is successful? Do you realize what basically what you guys started?
Watching the international play and watching the 6-man play is, to me, a lot more fun than watching the doubles on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I think the game is very exciting, a very powerful game. The guys are absolutely clobbering the ball from all over the court, which really wasn't much the case when we were playing. It's just a very exciting, very quick game. It's fun to watch.
Do you think you could have played the style they play now?
Mm-hmm.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
And so it hasn't changed much in the 40 years since you played?
My role might be different.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would be more of a setter than a hitter and a setter. But that's like asking Bill Russell, do you think he could play today's game? I mean, I think I could have played today's game.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
would you have liked to have a chance to play the way they play now?
Actually, when Selznick got his team together in '57, he came back from the World Games, and it was his idea to try and make the game in the States play like they played it overseas. Mm-hmm. So in '58, he got a group of guys together, and we started playing all hitters. Mm-hmm. 2 guys would bring a guy from the backcourt and have a 2-man block, and he tried to play the game like the international game. Mm-hmm. And our chief competitor was Hollywood YMCA, and they primarily played the American system. They brought a guy up from the backcourt, so they had a 4-man block all the time. And they played a 4-2, which means they had a setter in the front in each rotation, and we always brought our guy from the backcourt to set 3 players, and had a 2-man block, and we were at a big disadvantage. But that's what Jean wanted to do, mm-hmm. and so that's what we did.
Mm-hmm. Who would, when you were growing up, who was your role model? Who did you look up to as someone I'd like to be like that person?
I don't even think I could answer that. I don't know. You know, I used to be a big Boston Celtic fan. Mm-hmm. I used to love those guys when they were playing. Uh-huh. I was a big Yankee fan. I don't like either team now. But those were the 2 teams that I enjoyed watching on TV, uh-huh. or when the World Series games and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So your association with them, your allegiance with them is
long gone.
Long gone.
Long gone.
Who's your teams now?
Well, it used to be the Lakers until they traded Shaq. So now I'm a Miami Heat fan.
Miami Heat fan?
Yeah.
No kidding. So you'll follow Shaq around until...
Yeah, I think it's stupid if you got the best player in the league to get rid of him. Mm-hmm. But they didn't ask my advice. So.
Well, excuse me. Was there somebody, volleyball-wise, that you emulated and saw as a trendsetter, someone that you could find inspiration from?
I picked things from different people. Mm-hmm. I mentioned yesterday that I played a tournament with O'Hara, and in one particular circumstance, he said, "Go here, do this, and this will happen, and we'll win the point." And so, what he told me to do is he said he's going to serve the ball easy to Bernie Holtzman, and Bernie would set it, and Jean would hit it, and Jean couldn't see me at the net, and I'd block him. Well, he just might as well. He drew it up, and that's the way it happened. Mm-hmm. And I learned right then, and that's something that happened 45, almost 50 years ago, and I remember it like it happened yesterday. It was a good lesson for me to say that, to figure out that you could outthink your opponent if you thought enough about it. Mm-hmm. That everybody has a tendency. All your opponents have a tendency. They'll do certain things under critical conditions. And if you know what their tendencies are, you can go stand there, and maybe they'll hit the ball at you. I remember one time I was playing with Von Hagen, and his first time we were playing together, we were playing against a guy named Pete Hogan, or Bobby Hogan, and they were hitting the ball at Ronnie. And he finally looked at me and said, "Let's trade sides next time we serve him." I said, "Okay." So Bobby hits the ball, and I dig it, put the ball down. Ronnie said, "What'd you do?" I said, "I didn't do anything. I just stood there." He hit it right to me. So I mean, I figured what he most likely to do, and go and stood there. Right. Happened to dig the ball. Uh-huh. So you pick things from different people. Bernie was a great player, but he was well over the hill when I came across him. He was like 35, 36. Mm-hmm. But he understood the game, and he used to say, "Don't get mad at one call if you lose a match or a tournament because of one call. You didn't play well enough. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't let one call beat you."
Right.
So I picked from different players.
Uh-huh. What would you say, if you could remember back, was there any match or moment that stands out for you as the most memorable? Is there one thing that you are most proud of, or a moment that you remember in a match that you think back and say, "Man, that was where"?
Well, I can give you a match. I think it was 1968 Manhattan Open. Ronnie and I beat Henry and Larry Rundle. The first 2 out of 3 took 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And then we played him again, and this time we lost to him in about a 3-hour match. And we started the last match 1-15, and it was getting dark. And the tournament director said, "We can call this a tie." And Ronnie said, "Well, the other two, everybody was agreeable to a tie but me." And I said to Ronnie, "We can beat these guys." So we're ahead 11-8 when the lights went out, and I never saw another ball because it got dark. I mean, it was dark. Rundle serving sky balls, and Ronnie passed them. I didn't even see them. So we lost like 15-11. So that's considered one of the really great beach doubles tournaments, and I guess that's one case where my tenacity and stubbornness cost me. In the middle of the match, you can't say, "Can I have it back? Let's call it a draw."
Right.
So I would say that would be one of them.
Uh-huh. Were matches televised back then?
No.
Nothing was
No.
televised. So
no. There probably is very little film on any of those matches.
Mm-hmm. And yet today, you'll see a lot of beach volleyball on TV.
Yeah, in fact, you'll see the same match several times.
Yeah. On ESPN Classic.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Do you miss that? Is that something you said, "Boy, I wish that would have been around when I was there"?
No. I mean, it would have been nice. Mm-hmm. But you have your own time frame, and what's going on in your time frame. You can't dominate the time before you play, and you can't dominate the time after you play. You can only try and dominate your time period. Mm-hmm. And my time period was right at the beginning of when they first started to play for money, and so I missed it by about 15 years. But
so no regrets.
No, doesn't do me any good to have any regrets.
What have you been doing since your playing career ended?
I currently work for a company, and we custom design pre-tax savings plans for school teachers and cities and county employees.
Mm-hmm. Family?
Got
children?
2 boys that are 43 and 44.
Did they play?
No.
They did not play?
No. My one son a few years back did a triathlon, and he did it all by himself. He went out and swam in the lake and ran 10K and did a bike ride. And it was up in Lake Tahoe, which was 6,000, and the bike ride was from 6,000 to 9,000 feet and back. So he got done, and we said, "Why in the world would you want to do something like that?" He looked at us and said, "I know you guys would never do anything like this." So, you know. And both the boys are into surfing. You know,
So they grew up roughly where you did, yet they chose different courses.
different things struck their fancy.
What was it about volleyball that you liked so much? What was it? What struck your fancy when you were a young man thinking about?
Have no idea. Just something I started getting good at, and the more I played, the better I got at it. And then when I finally got Jean to play with me, it was it was a big coup because he was the best player around. And it just one thing led to another. Before I know it, I'm playing indoors, and Jean would call me up, and we'd go hit balls, just the two of us, for a couple, 3 hours. Put chairs on the court, aim at chairs, hit angles, and just really practice. And it was just fun. You know, it was nothing more than it was just fun. No agendas, just it was giggles to be out there.
That was the purity of the sport then.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, what do you think of the future of volleyball?
Well, I was talking to Doug Beal, and he's trying to make a move towards making not so much offense in the game, because the offense is well ahead of the defense. I don't have an opinion on that. The beach game, I don't like the rules in the beach game. I don't like the rally scoring. I don't like the blocking over the net. But you can't have a 3.5-hour match, so you have to have a time frame, and rally scoring gets you a time frame. I mean, volleyball's not popular enough sport that they can donate the time for an NFL football game, which is roughly 3.5 hours. And so they have to, shorten the game up. The blocking over the net, you got to take the referee out of the game. You can't have some guy put a little finger over the net and have it cost 10 grand, so let him do what he wants up there. I can understand that. It's just a different game. The courts are more manicured. The court's smaller. They did that because they thought they'd get more touches on the ball. But in so doing that, you've taken the guy who can run around and dig, taking him out of the game, because it's all stop it at the net. Most everything gets stopped at the net. And it's just a different game.
I remember a quote from Ted Williams, when he was much older, and he had said that, if he just had one more chance with a brand new ball and a brand new bat to go out there and take a swing. Do you ever think that, is there any part of Ron Lyon says, boy, I wish I had a chance to go back and play on the beach?
Well, I put it another way. I'd like to have those guys that are playing today and come back and play on my courts, the bigger courts, the big hole in the middle of the court, because now they play on manicured courts, and in a lot of cases they play on courts that are on parking lots. They bring in sand, and it's hard pack, and when they're 4, 5, 6 feet off the net, it's like jumping off a hardwood floor, and they get a lot of elevation and can kill the ball. Well, when we played, that center part of the court was about 2 feet lower than 2 feet down from the top of the net. So you're hitting 8-6, 8-7. And they don't play in places like Laguna, where it's a bloody quagmire, and San Diego, where the sand, you're running in the sand, you better have good sand legs, otherwise it's going to eat you up. So I'd like to do it the other way. I'd like to see them play in my era, because I think it'd be harder for them. Whether I could beat them or not, that's a moot point.
That'd be a fun match to see. Ron Lang, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Volleyball Hall of Famer.